To mark the occasion of the 7th episode of Low Budget Gaming, I decided to play a game from the 90s called The Seventh Guest. Was it any good? Ha! Just wait until you hear the things I have to say about it.
Konnichiwa, minasan. Watashi no na wa Jiminai desu, and folks, I should probably warn you right now, I may end up giving both Angry Joe and the Angry Video Game Nerd a run for their money in the angriness department when it comes to this game. It's The Seventh Guest, a point-and-click horror game. I suppose, before we dive in and get the crap scared out of us, we should talk a little bit about just who's doing the crap scaring. And I'm not talking about this guy.
The Seventh Guest was developed by a group called Trilobite Games, who also developed the game's sequel, The 11th Hour. And they've also developed a few other little-known games, among them one called Clandestiny, which was basically a sort of kid-friendlier version of The Seventh Guest. Those 3 games were later published, or packaged rather, under a bundle titled Uncle Henry's Playhouse. Now, that's really the last anyone's sort of heard of the Seventh Guest franchise until recently, when a group called Attic Door Productions started a Kickstarter campaign to produce their own entry into the franchise called The 13th Doll. And they look to have made their goal, and all indications are that the game will be available either late this year or early next year.
The story, in a very, very tiny, compact nutshell, is this. Henry Stoff was some old homeless dude who killed a woman, had a dream about a doll, made the doll, sold the doll, got rich from it, built a mansion, and disappeared. Now, sometime later, 6 people have been invited to this mansion by Stoff to partake in a game having to do with a 7th guest soon to arrive. Whoever wins this game will have granted to them their deepest desire. How do you know this? Your adventure takes place sometime after this game has ended, and you frequently see ghostly visions of the 6 guests as they, like you, try to solve the mansion's various puzzles and figure out what precisely is going on. It's a point-and-click puzzle game, so as far as movement is concerned, there's not really much I could say about the gameplay. You point, and you click. Click in the right place and you'll move, view a cutscene, activate a puzzle, or bring up the menu, depending on what the cursor looks like. One complaint I will level at the game in this regard involves turning. As you might expect, to turn your character, you move the cursor to either side of the screen and click, and you'll turn left or right depending on which side the cursor is on. But there have been some times when I would have the mouse on, say for instance, the left side of the screen, but the cursor would show the animation for turning right, and I wouldn't catch it. Sure enough, when I click, I would turn right, not left, like I wanted. You know, I could be wrong, but I think the last Express had a similar problem, and it's only made more annoying here by the movement animations. Let's talk more about movement now that I mention it. When you click to move, you don't just switch from one static screen to another as you would with another game of the time, say, for instance, Myst. No, here you get full-on 3D animations of moving from place to place and even turning around. Now, I get that these were a new feature in games back then, and indeed it was because of this that the 7th Guest was originally packaged on 2 CDs, and only CDs, because it was too large for floppy disks. It helped push CD-ROM drives to the forefront, and that's cool. But it's not perfect. The animations are slow and are not skippable, nor is there any way to speed them up, which means going from one end of the house to the other, or heck, even just trying to get out of a room, can take forever. Even Myst, which, again, in its original version had no movement animations, had the good sense to include a zip mode, where you could skip portions of the game area. To be fair, Seventh Guest does have some kind of a warping capability, but it's more along the lines of secret passages from Clue, and they're in the oddest of places. Now, at the risk of slightly spoiling a story element, your character is not exactly the most corporeal of beings, but even taking this into account, some of the shortcuts make absolutely no sense whatsoever, like this! What? How did... When... What? Why is this a thing? In addition to 3D animations, the game is chock full of FMV cutscenes, most of which you view either before or after a puzzle, and all of which serve to advance the story of the game, if you can keep track of them. Two major factors make this extremely difficult. One, the order in which they're played. Even assuming you played and completed the puzzles in the proper order, the flashbacks you see take place at random points during Stoff's little contest, and on top of that, some details are left out of the game entirely. Now, there is a novel based on the game, and released shortly after the game came out, written by the same people that wrote the game, which gives more backstory to the characters and adds scenes which give more explanation to the events. If you're really that curious about what's going on, you could probably find the book on Amazon somewhere, but I shouldn't have to go out and buy a separate book just so I can know about key details of the game. Factor number 2, the acting. And I do mean acting. Whew, I thought last week some of the voice acting in Dark Star 1 was cringeworthy. Whew, I clearly had no idea. This is supposed to be a horror game, yet with each cutscene I was resisting the urge to laugh my head off more than scream it off. Gosh. Suppose I've put this off long enough. Let's talk about these puzzles. The first thing that comes to my mind is whoever designed these puzzles had a hard-on for chess. There's a puzzle involving queens, another involving bishops, a third one involving knights. Oh, that knight puzzle. I've got some things to say about that, but I'll get to that later. Most of the puzzles seem to have the right amount of challenge to them. You try and fail a few times until you realize the pattern or the goal, and then you solve the puzzle. As mentioned earlier, solving a puzzle plays another cutscene. If, however, you find a puzzle too challenging, there is a hint system available in the form of a book in the library, provided, of course, you have the patience to actually get there. See my comments about moving. Click on the book once and it will give you a broad hint about the last puzzle you've attempted. Click the book again while still looking at it and it'll open up a door which will warp you back to the room with that puzzle. Now, provided that same puzzle is still the last one you've attempted, making a second visit to the hint book will give you a more specific hint, while clicking it a third time solves the puzzle outright. The only apparent downside to this being you don't get to see the associated cutscene if the puzzle is solved in this manner. At various points during the puzzle, usually when you're just beginning your attempt, either Stoff or your character will make some comment about it. The comments, however, can be extremely repetitive, but the most annoying thing about them, however, is that whenever either character starts talking, you lose all mouse control, meaning you can't do a damn thing until the character decides to shut up. By far, the most egregious offender in this regard is this one. It's a puzzle involving chess pieces, so naturally it takes place in the bathroom? Anyway, the goal of the puzzle is to swap the positions of the white and black knights. You can only move one knight at a time, and they move just like they do in chess, 2 squares by 1. Movement of the pieces takes ages. Movement animation for one chess piece takes close to 10 seconds. Now, by the time you get to this puzzle, you'll probably have already played the bishop puzzle, so it should be immediately obvious to you what the aim is, but that doesn't stop your character making incredibly obvious remarks about what to do, and as if that weren't annoying enough, every so often Stoff will chime in with an absolutely grating,
"Don't take all night."
God, that remark, that one right there, that remark being made over and over and over is what literally makes me want to reach through the screen of a 20-year-old game and wring the neck of a bloody video game character. 大丈夫、大丈夫。俺は大丈夫。落ち着け、ジムナイ。ごめんなさい、皆さん。 It's just... Playing this puzzle takes enough of an eternity as it is, just waiting on each chess piece to move, and it gets all the more infuriating when your control is taken away from you just because one of the characters feels like making the same comment they've made like 20 times now. And if you make a mistake and have to start the puzzle over again, they'll make their same comments each time you restart, and there's no way to skip the comments or turn them off. I'm fine. I'm fine now. I'm fine. I had to get that out of my system.
Don't take all.
You shut the hell up! This game was highly successful when it first came out, which is why the sequel, The 11th Hour, was released, and why today a group of 7th Guest fans with funding from Kickstarter and the blessing of the original developers are making their own entry into the franchise. And in all seriousness, I wish them the best of luck with that. I hope it does well for them. Demo minasan. I can only tell you my personal experiences with the game, and hope that it informs you or helps you out in some way. And for me, The 7th Guest was not a very enjoyable experience at all. From the long, unavoidable movement animations and the really bad acting, to the details about the goings-on in the house that are conspicuous by their absence, and the handful of puzzles that made me want to rage quit. In fact, you know what? That's exactly what happened, actually. Long story short, it was this one. Yeah, suffice to say it's impossible to play on modern computers. I'm sorry, but I just cannot find any redeeming qualities about this game whatsoever.
Well, that'll do it for another edition of Low Budget Gaming. Well, who knows, maybe next time we'll stumble onto a more enjoyable game. Love to hear from you guys, so make sure to leave a comment below. Let me know what you think about the game if you've played it before, and also please consider clicking that like button if you enjoyed this episode, and share it with everybody, share it with your friends. And of course, don't forget, click that subscribe button to stay up to date on everything that goes on here at Gemini Does Games, and like and follow me as well on Facebook and Twitter. 次回まで、私の名はジェミナイです。ありがとうございました。さよなら。